I think Breitling is having a genuine resurgence. I don't mean they've released one or two nice watches. I mean as a brand, Breitling suddenly feels relevant again. Here today in the studio, I've got this Breitling Navitimer B01 chronograph 43 with the absolutely stunning blue dial. Firstly, a massive thank you to Oakley Watches for lending this one into the channel. You get one of these Breitlings in your hands, particularly under a macro lens, it really makes you realise just how far this brand has come. Because just look at this, and then look at some of these Breitlings that were released 10-15 years ago. Now before somebody gets angry in the comments, I'm not saying old Breitlings were bad watches, they weren't, but there was definitely a period where Breitling became associated with massive cases, highly polished bracelets, busy dials and that very particular early 2000s luxury watch aesthetic. They were big, they were very loud, and if we're being slightly cruel, some of them haven't aged brilliantly. But modern Breitling feels completely different, and this Navitimer is probably one of the best examples. The Navitimer itself is obviously not new, it's one of the most recognisable watches that Breitling has ever made. But for years I think it suffered from being labelled an old man's watch, and somehow Breitling has managed to modernise it without ruining what made it a Navitimer in the first place, and that's actually really difficult to do. You've still got the circular slide rule, you've still got the incredibly busy dial, you've still got that unmistakable Navitimer look, but everything just feels cleaner, sharper and more luxurious. And this dial is ridiculous. The blue has so much depth to it, and then you've got all these different textures, polished details and tiny elements just catching the light. Under a macro lens the finishing is seriously impressive. It's one of those watches where the closer you get the better it looks. And for me that's always been the sign of a genuinely well finished watch. Cheap watches can often look brilliant from 3 feet away. It's when you get very close that you start seeing where the money has or has not been spent. And this absolutely holds up. The case finishing is excellent. The pushers feel substantial. The crown is beautifully done. The leather strap feels properly premium. And although 43mm sounds enormous on paper, the proportions of this Navitimer make far more sense once it's actually on the wrist. It still has presence. This is Breitling after all. But it doesn't feel like the brand is simply making something massive for the sake of it anymore. They seem to be much more consideration going into proportion, design and wearability. And then you've got the B01 movement. This is another area where I think modern Breitling deserves more credit. They're not simply producing attractive watches with generic movements. The B01 is a proper in-house automatic chronograph, and it gives Breitling some genuine mechanical credibility alongside this stunning design. And that matters, especially at this end of the market. But the important thing is this resurgence isn't just about the Navitimer. Look across the range over the last few years. The Super Ocean Heritage, the Chronomat, the Top Time, the Premier, the smaller Super Oceans, the updated Avenger. There are genuinely loads of Breitlings that I would now happily own. And I don't think you could have said that about the brand 10 years ago. It feels like they've finally worked out how to use their history without becoming trapped by it. And then there's another part of Breitling which people don't really talk about, and this is the boutiques. The Breitling boutiques seem to be popping up everywhere, and they're actually really cool places. They don't have intimidating clinical luxury watch shop feeling that you sometimes get. There's usually a much more relaxed atmosphere. Motorbikes, aviation memorabilia, industrial styling, sofas. It genuinely feels like someone has thought about what the Breitling brand is supposed to be. And every time I've been into one, the staff have been genuinely enthusiastic about the watches. And that sounds like a small thing, but it really isn't. When you're asking someone to spend thousands of pounds on a luxury product, the experience surrounding that product absolutely matters. There is still one small problem though, and that is brand perception. I think Breitling's watches have improved faster than the public perception of Breitling. There's still lots of collectors who hear the name Breitling and immediately picture those enormous, high polished watches from 15 years ago. And I think they're missing what the company is doing today, because that isn't Breitling anymore. If anything, I think that contrast makes the resurgence even more impressive. They haven't abandoned their identity. The modern Navitimer is still instantly recognisable as Breitling. The Chronomat still looks like a Chronomat. A Super Ocean still feels like a Breitling dive watch. They've just refined everything. Better proportions, better colours, better movements, better finishing and better marketing. And crucially, watches that actually feel desirable again. And this Navitimer B01 probably sums that up better than anything. Take a watch that could easily have become permanently stuck in the past, keep everything that made it iconic, improve the finishing, modernise the performance, give it a fantastic movement, and then suddenly this so-called old man's watch looks completely at home in 2026. Breitling isn't perfect, and whether their current retail prices make sense against what these can sometimes be bought for on the used market is a different conversation entirely. But purely from a product and brand perspective, I think Breitling is producing some of the best watches it has made in decades. And I'm starting to think the wider watch community is noticing. Breitling is genuinely having a resurgence.